Hello and welcome once again to Sunday night with Jamie and Nikki with no Jamie. He is currently somewhere in a plane, I believe. He was having some issues with delays. I think he should be flying by now. Back over from his New Zealand trip. Once again, just abandoning his fantasy responsibilities by having a social life and having a personal life. And I just can't believe that, to be honest. It's pretty shameful. He could have been doing a live on the plane, get some Wi-Fi on there, get the opinions of people sitting around him. But no, no, doesn't even go to those small efforts for you, the viewer. So I will try my best to fill that gap, at least for a relatively short video today, probably. And for a change from these Sunday night videos that we've been doing, I'm relatively happy. I'm in a relatively good mood. The games today were pretty good for my team. Not perfect, not a perfect week by any means. But in general, no Cleary, no Haas, no problem. Not far off that 1,000 point mark. We are just outside. Hopefully, some upgrades can get us into that top 10K, which, let's be honest, a pretty pathetic goal for this time of the season for what I was kind of hoping to do this year. But yeah, we got to take what we can get. So hopefully we're in there. Next couple of weeks are going to be pretty interesting. We'll get into that. How people's teams are going to look like, how many trades people have, how much of the last week or two of carnage they've copped, and how well they've planned for the final two major and minor buys. So we'll get into that, have a bit of a chat of that. First of all, we'll have a little look at the games, the final two games today. Um, let's do let's do the last game first because that makes sense. The game felt like a bit of a damp squib to end the week, or an extremely wet squib throughout the game. Not a whole lot of fantasy relevant people in there, but two of the ones that are fantasy relevant, top two guys in the list here, Big Bo and the Redeemer, Scott Drinkwater. Um, Drinky, this just shows what we can expect out of Drinky. You talked about it a bit last week. In games where the Cowboys are at full strength, they're attacking, they're able to score points. Drinkwater will be involved in that. And this is one of those games. Two tries, try assists, one try assist. Gave up the goals kicking on the left-hand side, took them on the right-hand side. A bit odd, but I mean, from a team perspective, they all everyone went over, so you can't really argue with the results. 62 points. It's not amazing for two tries, two line breaks, try assists, etc. But it's kind of, I mean, this is Drinky, right? He's not at that uh top level of guys who we can expect, this kind of result to get closer to the 100. But if you've got him, you've held on to him, we're pretty happy as owners, and he'll be useful next week. And he's still a buy, I think. Like 500, this will stop the bleeding for his cash. He should be roughly still around that 550K mark, and that's still value. The questions were, do you go down to the turbo likes? Do you spend up? He's in that middle row, and you can definitely give value for 550K. But in saying that, next week when the Origin guys are gone again, do we get this version of the Cowboys and Drinkwater, or back to his 15s because they can't get out their own half? So we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, those that have held the faith, we're happy. We're happy with this. And both of them are just very solid. This is just what Bo does. Uh, you know, tons of base, and then he'll score a try. A 50 general 50 score, and then the try pops him up into the mid 60s. So he's definitely there. Not obviously not a target for this week, given they don't play next week, but for the run home, he's somebody that's in there as he'll be one of the top centers. So yeah. Depends on how many centers and ring fullbacks we're going to be left with after this week. From then on, I mean, there's not a whole lot. Robson back to kind of a better scorer. And Tino could be somebody you look at towards the end. 69 minutes is pretty good. 80 minutes for Ruben Cotter. He's 550K. If he was playing 80 minutes every week, he'd be somebody that could be interesting, but just hasn't really done it all year. So I'd be surprised if it turns around. Brimson at fullback, a bloody mess for parts of the game, but decent score. Don't think anybody still has him. Chris Randall, if you jumped on him, 43 is okay. Didn't score a try this week, which had bumped him up the last couple of weeks. But in terms of, kind of the cheaper hookers that people were maybe looking at a few weeks ago, he's done pretty well. And yeah, this is fine. If you do have him, just move down, not a lot going on until we get to, here he is. Jackson Purdue, not what you wanted if you held on to him moving back to the centers where he done so well. Just nothing going on there at all, really. He did get the try assist. Yeah. So, line break assist, try assist, and still getting 15 is not great. So I think he's possibly coming to the end of usefulness now. Could be somebody that you look to, downgrade so we can upgrade somewhere else. But if you need a center for next week, you probably have to hold. Like, I think if you've got him, you probably just have to hold through next week. Hopefully he can go back to his good scoring. If not, then yeah, he's somebody that you can look to move on, I think, afterwards. But yeah, just getting 13 players out next week could be challenging for some people. So yeah, it's a bit of a luxury trade if you've got him and you're moving him on, I think. Yeah, so not a whole lot of fantasy relevance there, but in this game, for my team especially, as I look at the three of the top four scorers being in my side, this was a fun watch. And there's been games going back to earlier in the season where I had Harry Grant and I had Munster and I had Jack Howarth. There was quite a few times where they were playing on the Sunday, and I kind of done relatively well up to the Sunday. And then I thought, if these guys go big, I'm going to have a good week. And then they just never did. There was always a disappointment. And the Storm would usually win, but they'd all be around this 40 mark and not really anything too exciting. Well, Hughes and Katoa were a bit more exciting this week. Jerome Hughes got him in a couple of weeks ago. This is exactly the type of game we want off of Jerome Hughes. Tons of kick meters, running the ball, two try assists. I am a bit. I said this in the 10 tackle breaks. That's awesome. I've never been a fan of the double try assist. So when Hughes kicks the ball up in the air, Katoa takes it, takes clean possession, and then offloads for who was it, Meany to score, and they both get the try assist. So in general, I've never been a fan of that rule, but when it's your two guys, then you're pretty happy with it. So I'm not complaining this time. But yeah, Jerome Hughes, 600K, A5, that's perfect, right? That's absolutely amazing. That's why we got him. And if he keeps this up now, obviously he's not going to score 85 every week, but this was the type of thing we want. Just these signs that he could be that cut price keeper for the rest of the year. So you fight for like, you look at my team and I'm, I'm a bit short on cash. I don't have the team value. I've been just bleeding money all over the place. I was never up at the, 14 plus K, that 14 plus million that a lot of teams got to, but then also bringing in, Drinkwater when I did Campbell last week for his massive price drops. I've been bleeding cash everywhere. So I'm probably not going to be able to target those top guns in like every position. Like I'm probably not going to be able to get an Isaiah Katoa. So, you're looking for these guys around 600K that can replicate that. They can kind of do that for you. And Hughes was the hope that he's back, he's fit, he like I said, might not be as good as he was at the run home last year, but this was great signs for me. So yeah, Jerome Hughes, awesome. Still think he's a buy if you need a half for next week. not much to say. And then Eli Katoa. This is one of the games where if you weren't watching the scores and just watching the game, I think it feels like he would be on more than 66. Line break try, couple of offload try assists, ran the ball 140 meters, decent tackle numbers, not spectacular. But that kind of felt like, yeah, this is a 70, 80 type of game. And it's only 66. So, being a bit greedy, 66, obviously pretty awesome. But yeah, felt like maybe it'd be a little bit more. But cannot complain at all. And again, yeah, he's for the people looking to move Couchman on and stuff like that for next week, he's up there with the options. Is it same with Hughes, kind of thinking about getting Hughes over Katoa. Yeah, Isaiah Katoa. Katoa over Preston. So I got Katoa over Preston for the same type of reason. Like it's a cheaper, 100K cheaper. Hopefully we can get roughly the same production out of them. So I would say, and it's going to be an interesting. I'll talk about it, maybe strategy a little bit more when we get to my team around like if you are moving Couchman on, what kind of tactics for that might be to try and get a guy out to get a full team out next week. But yeah, like Katoa is definitely a good option. I would say Preston's still better than Katoa, will likely score better, but at that 100K, and if you're like me, you're kind of maybe I'll save 100K here, 100K there, and help to get the real top guns in other positions. Then yeah, Eli Katoa, a very good option. Trentley Arrow, like not too many people have him, and then Nico Hines, 57. It's he's just stuck in that 50s. That's the 40 or 50 range. You just can't get out of it. But this was more this was a good 50, I think. In a game where they got beat up, especially late on, kind of overrun a bit. There wasn't a lot of space for him in attack, but 33 tackles, 70 run meters is okay. Kick meters back up. Still not. He's still Trindle's still out kicking him, but I mean, this goes to show how much they were kicking from inside their own half, like how little field position they had. They kicked from 750 meters between them, but still 10 points, 50 points in base. Add the try assist, a couple other things, a couple of negatives, you get 57. That's the base you want for Hines. And then in games where and they've been few and far between, but gets the attack, gets the line breaks, gets a try, some more tackle breaks or offloads. And finally, maybe perhaps he can get 60, 70, which has eluded him for so long. But yeah, again, it's fine. If you've got Hines, it's fine. We're not excited, but it's fine. And yeah, we keep going. Um, they have the bye next week. Yes. So yeah, look, can you sell Hines? I mean, yeah, I think this is like we've seen enough of what this year's Nico Hines is going to give us, and I think if you've had enough, and he's one of the guys that you want to upgrade. Like again, if you've uh he's a downgrade to you get a Couture or something like that. I mean, I don't think you go Hines to Hughes or any of those types of moves, but yeah, I don't know. I think Hines is still a hold. Like I'm holding him. I'm not really looking to sell him. He's not the fun watch. He's not a fun watch. He's a hard watch at times. But if he keeps grinding out 50s, we have a lot more problems in our team, I think, over the next few weeks to worry about kind of moving him on. Bloor, Munster, you know, Munster's decent again for those kind of holding on. Decent, if not spectacular. Fanua Blake and McInnes. I think I've pretty much locked in the fact that it was a pretty bad move to get McInnes over Fanua Blake a few weeks ago. It just hasn't worked for me. The expectation was I had the expectation that McInnes would be playing a lot more minutes than this. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, his PPM isn't what normally he'd be 52 minutes for 52. Just isn't really doing it this year. Yeah, if he's somebody that's on my chopping block, certainly. I think for the next few, if not next week, but then around 1920, etc., as we're looking to get the guns in. Back to Harry Grant. I mean, these missed tackles. This is what was sorry. This is what we were getting at the start of the year. I just tons of negatives, not a whole lot of attack, and 40 points. So he's still somebody I think we think about for the run home. There's not a lot of hookers out there other than Aaron Clark. So if you do want another gun hooker, him, Connor Watson are probably the ones on the list. But yeah, I don't know. It's I'm not sold. I'm not sold to be honest. Nickera, Mitchie's boy. Yeah, too many missed tackles, nothing really in attack. 42. Pretty average there. Moving down. Falongo, that hammy ping is look nasty. So yeah, that's a shame for him. Shame for him. Paps, for those that have him, 34. Again, this is just what we'll get out of Pappenhausen. You'll get you an 80 one week and he'll get you a 30 odd the next week, even with the goal kicking. So if you have Pappenhausen, this is what's in his wheelhouse and you live with it. It's like Drinky, maybe a bit more kind of explosive than Drinky this year, but still, if you get him and he's 600k, that's relatively cheap because he has these games where he just doesn't, things just don't go his way. So yeah, if you have him, annoying, but fine. And yeah, I'm not sure much else relevant. Talakai, if anybody jumped on the cheapie, you know, it's something, but it's not great. So, okay, cool. Those are the last two games. Uh, let's have a look at my side. So, yeah, as I said, just, pushing up towards that 1,000 mark. Um, no real disasters other than Couchman, obviously. I mean, that's a sad one. Again, I think I purchased him. He's just my timing this year has been incredible, and I think I bought him just as he's on his downslide. So what round did I pick him up? Probably here, to be honest. So I think he was coming off that 69. Yeah, this is when he came back on the edge. And then I think I got him for a 54, 47, 19, and he'll probably lose about 100k. So, story of my year, but yeah, there we go. And one of the reasons we get these guys in was for round 18. And he's not going to be there. That's painful. That's painful. Zach Costing, though, not painful at all. He's back. He's back. 71. Awesome. Means he gets another few weeks, another few weeks of leeway. Going to be a good number next week. By around 19. And, yeah, he is somebody that you can think about. Is he the top end keeper gun type of edge? Games like this. And this is what we were hoping for when we got him, right? This is what we know these 70s and even bigger games are in his wheelhouse. Unfortunately, hasn't quite done it since coming back, since, Nicholson went down. But this is definitely promising. So Hosking, great. Cook, I mean, good score. Not happy about the minutes. Now, I did see word that he has a bit of an ankle problem, I think. I think it was some kind of lower leg injury. So hopefully it's kind of nothing and it's fine and he's good next week. Because if he's not, that's a problem. And hopefully that was what limited his minutes because they had a lot of problems in this. I think Hamish Stewart went off. There's a few HIAs, a couple of knocks, of injuries, and he still only played 50 minutes. So that's kind of worrying if that's the trend. Hopefully it was, just because he had a bit of a knock and he did finish the game as far as I remember. So yeah, hopefully he's all good, be all good next week and can get back into this. I mean, this would be the dream. But even more in like the 60s, 64, 60s, these types of minutes. This when he brought him in, this is kind of what we wanted. And he's scoring well. His PPM's been great the last couple of weeks. If you ignore the game he moved to center, his PPM's been awesome most of the year. Just need to get these minutes up. So fingers crossed he's all good next week. I don't think I can recommend him as a buy based on those minutes because you're probably just getting him for this week and then because like if those minutes stick, then I'm thinking that he's a it's somebody that you when you look to do their upgrade. So when I want to get Cleary back or get Hassan, who are we? Which are the two we're kind of upgrade downgrade targets? Cook's probably in there if he's not getting the minutes. So yeah, I'm not sure if you can buy him based on that, but in saying that, there's not a whole lot of options if you don't have a hooker for round 18. And you still think if he does get into that 60 plus minutes, he has potential to be a keeper, like same price as say Harry Grant. Cook playing 65 plus minutes is probably going to score as well as Grant the way things have been going. So yeah, he still has potential, but yeah, hopefully those minutes get up. Loop between King Tonga and Fainu. So extra 8 points by bringing King Tonga in. It's fine. I thought he looked quite good, King Tonga, in patches. Like some of his run made some good, strong runs. Uh, line break or two. Did he get two line breaks? One line break? A few tackle busts. Let's have a look. Yeah, two line breaks. Got the try assist. Yeah, I'm like we can't expect the world from these guys. Same as Bayinu, who was solid, I thought. But yeah, like we can't expect the world from these 250, 300K guys. Good kick meters, ran the ball. Yeah, like nothing really in attack. But if we can get these guys and just get solid 40 from them, that's really valuable, I think. So yeah, happy enough with these two. And if you need to play them next week, so I've got Hughes, so my halves would be Hughes, and then one of the again looping between these two again. And hope one of them should at least be able to give us a relatively good score. Go through the rest of the team. Aaron Clark is Aaron Clark. May captain just did his job. Talked about McInnes. Tapane, now hopefully his fingers okay. Look pretty nasty. I think the latest, I haven't heard much, is that it was just a dislocation and he'll be fine. If he's not fine, if he's out, that adds to the problems for next week. But fingers crossed he's all good. Kolomatangi, definitely his worst game fantasy wise since I moved to the middle. There was a risk, I thought quite a fairly high risk that he got into the origin squad, possibly on the bench, but he hasn't. So the team's come out just as I was about to start recording. So that's good. We're all good with him. That would have been another problem if Couchman was out and Tappane's out and Clomatanga's at Origin and Cook's out, all these little niggles, then next week could be a major, major problem. But we should be okay. Katoa talked about Hines Hughes, Lucas, solid as everyone has him. The Manly boys, Garrick and Turbo. That game, I only kind of watched the first half of the Manly Tigers game before going out, and it just looked a horrible game of football, didn't it? Not a lot going on at all, but they managed to get they're decent scores, right? Especially for Turbo. 400K guy getting you 49.50. You'll take that every day of the week. Happy to have him next week. Could you buy him still? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could. Um, hopefully the chat that this is kind of getting the legs under him. This will get him running, and then they move back to fullback. I think he still has that higher ceiling at fullback, but 49 is a good score, so we'll take it. Carrick as well, not a whole lot of ball, but got to try, and yeah, we'll take 48 to 50 from a Garrick. Karaz, he's the big one that I think a lot of people brought him in this week, me included, and he's 18th man. So the 18th man curse has struck me again. I brought Burton in before game two, and he was 18th man, so I had to sell him. And so I've got Karaz now, and he's 18th man. Now, looking at my team, I have 4 trades left coming into this week. If Couchman's out, well, Couchman is out, Karaz is out. If Tapani's fine, Cook's fine, then I still have them. I can field 13 next week with no trades. So I think I'm in a pretty good position there. Uh, I'm just kind of double counting the numbers. So I'd have Cook, Tapani, May, Kolomatangi, Katoa, Hosking in the edges, Hughes, and then King Tonga or Fainu, Garrick and Marky Mark in the centers, and then Turbo, Drinky, and Teddy. So unless I've got my eyes mixed up in my head, that should be 13 and no trades. And that's kind of, you know, perfect if you want. Because the reason I made three trades last week, selling Cleary, which I wouldn't have had Katoa, so it's kind of made me, his having his I mean that move was doomed as soon as Campbell went down. So it meant if I had Campbell getting 60s last week and this week, I'd be loving it. Then that trade get Katoa in, scoring well. He'll be really valuable next week. The trade overall might have been worth it. In the end, probably not, but with Katoa's score, it's been maybe not too bad. But the reason I did that was to get these numbers and, brought Karaz in last week again to beef up these numbers it's just in case carnage happens, I'm able to react. I think there'll be a lot of people out there who maybe, were maybe two or three guys short coming into this week and then losing Couchman, losing Karaz, whatever else might have happened, are in a position where they're probably unlikely to field a full squad. So whatever happens, I should be able to field a full squad, which should hopefully get me up into that top 10,000. That really, really lame target. But if I'm playing 13 and other people aren't, I think I should have a relatively decent week. Um, and just like on that in general, I think it is valid to not play 13. Like you don't want to be wasting trades on guys you don't want just to field 13. But in saying that, you are giving, especially if it's like a cheap guy, right? Like, you're getting in a cheapie just for the sake of it, then and they get you a 20 odd, then it's not worth it. Especially if you're running out of trades, if you've got plans for what you do want to do going forward. Because the guys I've brought in, so yeah, Karaz is annoying because he's not playing this week. But Karaz is still somebody that I'm happy to have on my side for the rest of the year. So I'm not getting them. And same with Katoa, right? Again, that was a cheaper Edge and Hughes, the cheaper guys that if they come off, they will be keepers for the rest of the year. Rather than I'll just get this guy in for round 18 and then it gives me that coverage and then I have to sell him later on. Those are the moves that I don't think are really worth it at this stage. Um, But if you can get somebody that you want to target anyway, and it was one of the reasons I sold when I did the trade out of Cleary and bring Campbell in, and obviously that wasn't a move for round 18, but that was I'm going to use a trade. I want Campbell for the run home, so I'm going to have to use a trade to get him in anyway. So I might as well do it now. Like I'm not really like losing a trade in the grand scheme of things. I'm just using it now rather than later on. So if you're bringing in guys that you want for the run home, then do it. But if you're getting somebody that you don't want for the run home and it's purely a stopgap and you're going to trade them out in a couple of weeks, maybe not the best way. But I think this time of year is always it's very team dependent. It's very like position dependent. If are you doing well? Are you doing badly? Like I'm doing so badly that I'm uh making these kind of moves and trading out people and getting people in just to try and make something happen and try and get up the rankings a bit. So I'm willing to be a bit to take some more risks and uh maybe go for upside, whereas the safer play would just be to hold the trades and hold the guns rather than looking to get them back later. And if you're up in the top 100, then you don't need to make those type of moves. You're doing great. So, again, it's very team dependent, position dependent this time of year, I think. Uh, the other maybe kind of tactics you could follow is say if you're trading out a Couchman, And this is kind of what I was thinking of what I would do if I need to fill in. So again, if Tapani goes out, if I lose somebody else, you know, you could go Couchman to Katoa. Say, you've got a bit of money. If you've got some more, you could go up to Preston. The other option might be to go cheaper. Again, if you either A, play short, or go cheap and then try and then build up that cash balance for when we want to get Cleary, Haas, Yo, Connor Watson, Angus Crichton, whoever the Origin guys, Latrell, like these guys that we're going to want for the run home, but are going to be difficult to get. So if you've sold Haas, if you've sold Cleary, you don't have either of them like I don't, then I'm going to need to, this is like an up and, I need two guys to sell. And for Couchman, if I don't have to field 13, I'd probably just hold him because he's going to be my way to say if I can get Cleary in 19, trade Couchman and Cook if I've had enough of Cook or McInnes or, whoever I've kind of, seen enough of and want to move on from. I'm just going to save that trade to get those guys. You can maybe go Couchman to a Jack Bird, like a cheaper option. If he keeps playing 80 minutes on the edge, he's going to do okay, you would think. Like, yeah, he's not spectacular or anything. But if you just need to fill that gap this week, an edge gap, Couchman to Bird will make you 300 plus K, whatever his price will be when he goes down, have 300K in the bank. And then next week, you do a one trade up to Cleary, or you save that money and you get or you upgrade to a Latrell, or you hold on to it for Cat Haas in round 21, whatever it might be. So, like, it might be a bit, yeah. Just again, think at this stage, it's really thinking about your final squad and how you get there. And if you're running out of trades, if you've got loads of trades, it's fine. You've got so many options. You can go Couchman to Katoa and then make two trades next week for Cleary or however you want to do it. But if you are running low and fours fine. Like for me, like I said, like it's if I don't need to trade this week, I don't need to trade next week. I've got full 13s, provided nothing else happens. So if I am making trades, I want to make as many of those trades as I can post Origin to get those guys in. So yeah, if I did have to trade, it'd probably be Couchman to a cheapie and save that money for next week. But yeah, my general plan at the moment would be play the 13 as is, keep Couchman, and then make my trades when the Origin guns are available and can make more longer term decisions from there. So yeah, cool. That's it. That's me for this week. I've probably rambled on a bit longer than I planned to, as usual. That's what happens when I get a mic in front of me. But yeah, cool. Hopefully enjoyed. And yeah, Jamie will be back next week. And cool. See everybody.